Every grandmother in America had that one drawer. You know the one. The drawer that stuck when you pulled it, rattled when you shook it, and held more mystery than your entire childhood combined. Rubber bands wrapped around dead batteries, keys that opened nothing, a flashlight that had not worked since Carter was president. But here's the thing. Every single item in that drawer meant something. Number 11 on this list was so common. Factories made 300 million of them a year, and now kids do not even know what it is. Number 5 was worth real money, and your grandmother threw handfuls of it into a coffee can like loose change. These 15 things are not just junk. They are artifacts from a world that operated differently. Before we start, subscribe because this list is about to unlock memories you forgot you had. Let's open that drawer. Number 15, S and H green stamps. Before credit card points and cashback apps, your grandmother earned rewards the old-fashioned way, one lick at a time. S and H green stamps came with every grocery trip, handed over at the register like little paper promises. She would sit at the kitchen table after dinner, wetting each stamp with a damp sponge and pressing them into collection books, page after page. A full book took about 1,200 stamps, enough to redeem for a toaster, a set of towels, or a table lamp from the Green Stamps catalog. By 1964, the S&H Company was printing 3 times more stamps than the United States Postal Service. That is not an exaggeration, 3 times more. Your grandmother saved those books in that junk drawer like they were treasury bonds. Some women had stacks of them, dozens deep, saving up for a big ticket item like a kitchen mixer or a rocking chair. The program collapsed in the 1980s when supermarkets switched to everyday low pricing. But those leftover books stayed in the drawer for decades. Nobody could throw them away. They represented hours of patience, thousands of grocery trips, and a reward system built entirely on trust between a housewife and her local store. The stamps were worthless. The memory of earning them was not. Number 14, wooden clothespins. A handful of wooden spring clothespins lived in every junk drawer in America, even after the family stopped hanging laundry on the line. These were the old-fashioned kind, smooth birch wood with a steel spring that pinched your fingers if you were not careful. Your grandmother used them for everything except laundry. They clipped shut a bag of chips. They held a recipe card to the cupboard door. They pinched a crease into freshly ironed curtains. Kids turned them into little soldiers, drawing faces on the wood with ballpoint pens. They cost almost nothing, maybe a nickel a piece from the hardware store, and they lasted forever. The plastic ones that replaced them cracked in the sun after one summer. Wooden clothespins did not. They just aged, turning gray and smooth like driftwood. A dozen of them rattling around the back of the drawer was the soundtrack of looking for anything else. Number 13, rubber band balls. Your grandmother never threw away a rubber band, not one. She pulled them off the newspaper, off bundles of asparagus, off the mail carrier's daily delivery, and she wrapped them around each other until a dense, bouncy sphere formed in the back of the junk drawer. Some of these balls grew to the size of a softball over years. The older bands on the inside would dry out and snap, but the outer layers held tight, creating this geological record of every rubber band that had entered the house since 1971. Nobody ever used the ball. That was not the point. The point was not wasting something that might come in handy. And if you ever did need a rubber band, you peeled one off the outside like pulling bark from a tree. The ball got smaller, then grew again. It was never finished. It was a living thing, a monument to thrift that sat between the takeout menus and the dead batteries, silently growing. Number 12, church keys. Not the kind that opened a church. The flat metal bottle openers with a pointed triangle end for punching holes in cans. Before pull tabs existed, every can of juice, every tin of evaporated milk, every can of high C required 2 triangle punctures, one to pour and one to breathe. Your grandmother's junk drawer had at least 3 of these, usually stamped with the name of a local beer distributor or a hardware store that closed in 1978. The pointed end could also pry open paint cans. Kids were fascinated by them because they looked vaguely dangerous, like a tiny medieval weapon hiding among the coupons. When pop-top cans arrived in the late 1970s, the church key became obsolete overnight. But nobody threw them away. They just sank deeper into the drawer, underneath the twist ties and beside the book of matches from a restaurant that no longer existed. Number 11, trading stamps and coupon wallets. Your grandmother kept an accordion-style coupon organizer, stuffed so thick it would not close anymore. Coupons clipped from the Sunday paper were sorted by aisle and rubber banded by expiration date. She carried it to the Piggly Wiggly like a briefcase. By the early 1970s, studies showed the average American housewife spent 5 hours a week clipping and sorting coupons. 5 hours. That was a part-time job. The savings were real, sometimes knocking 30% off the grocery bill. Manufacturers printed 300 billion coupons a year at the peak. Your grandmother's junk drawer held the overflow, the expired ones she could not part with, the ones for products she might try someday, the doubles she planned to use at stores that honored them. Digital coupons killed the paper ritual, but that stuffed wallet stayed in the drawer like a trophy. Number 10, mystery keys. Every grandmother's junk drawer contained a ring of keys that opened absolutely nothing anyone could identify. Some were brass and worn smooth. Others still had the sharp edges of a fresh cut from the hardware store. A few had colored rubber caps, faded to gray. They might have opened a padlock on a shed that was torn down in 1983, or the back door of a house sold 20 years ago, or a filing cabinet that went to Goodwill. Nobody could throw them away because the moment you did, you would discover exactly what they opened. That was the unspoken rule. The keys stayed. 6, 8, sometimes a dozen of them, loose in the drawer or bound together on a bent paper clip. They clinked every time you opened the drawer, a little percussion section of forgotten security. Number 9, pen caps without pens. At least 5 Bic pen caps, rolling around with no pens attached. Chewed on the ends, ink stained on the inside, completely useless. Yet there they sat, year after year, alongside a dried out Sharpie and a pencil sharpened down to a nub too small to hold. Your grandmother kept them because somewhere in the house she believed the matching pen was waiting. It never was. The pens had run dry and been tossed, but the caps survived like little blue and black orphans. If you dug deep enough, you might also find a mechanical pencil with no lead, a golf pencil from a church fundraiser, and a pen from a bank that changed its name in 1992. None of them worked. All of them stayed. Number 8, books of matches. Your grandmother did not smoke. Or maybe she did, decades ago. Either way, the junk drawer held a collection of matchbooks from restaurants, motels, and wedding receptions spanning 3 decades. The Sizzler, Howard Johnson's, a cousin's reception at the VFW Hall in 1974. Some had phone numbers written inside the cover in handwriting nobody recognized. Businesses used to give these away by the fistful. They were free advertising you could set on fire. By 2000, most restaurants had stopped offering them. Smoking bans made them unwelcome. But the matchbooks stayed in the drawer, little paper time capsules with striking strips worn smooth from years of friction against rubber bands and loose change. Number 7, twist ties by the hundreds. Bread bag twist ties multiplied in that drawer like they were breeding. White ones, green ones, the coated wire kind, and the flat plastic kind. Your grandmother saved every single one because you never knew when you would need to close something. A bag of frozen peas, an extension cord that needed bundling, or the garbage bag that was too full to tie. She had enough twist ties to organize every cord and cable in 3 houses, and she used maybe 4 a year. They tangled with the rubber bands and threaded through the mystery keys, creating a little ecosystem of useful adjacent objects that nobody ever cleaned out. Number 6, a deck of cards missing the 7 of diamonds. There was always an incomplete deck of cards in the junk drawer. The box was soft and splitting at the corners. The cards themselves were tacky from years of being shuffled by hands that had been eating popcorn, and one card was always missing. Maybe two. Enough to make a proper game of poker impossible, but your grandmother kept them anyway. Because 51 cards was still plenty for solitaire. She played at the kitchen table after the dishes were done, laying out columns on the formica while the evening news murmured from the other room. That worn deck carried more mileage than most things in the house. Number 5, loose change and wheat pennies. The junk drawer was a retirement home for coins too inconvenient to spend. Pennies mostly, some of them old enough to feature wheat sheaves instead of the Lincoln Memorial. Those wheat pennies were minted between 1909 and 1958, and your grandmother did not save them because she knew they were collectible. She saved them because she saved everything. Mixed in with the modern pennies were occasional silver dimes from before 1965, worth several dollars in melt value alone. Some grandmothers kept a coffee can or a mason jar nearby holding the overflow. That loose change represented something deeper than money. It was the habit of a generation that remembered when a penny could buy a piece of candy and a quarter could buy a gallon of gas. Number 4, sewing kit from a hotel. A tiny plastic case the size of a matchbox, containing 2 needles, 3 colors of thread, 1 miniature safety pin, and a button that matched nothing else in the house. Your grandmother pocketed this from a Holiday Inn in 1979, and it lived in the junk drawer ever since. She had a proper sewing basket in the closet with everything she actually needed. But this little kit was free, and free things did not get thrown away. Kids would open it, fascinated by the miniature spools, then snap it shut and toss it back. It survived every drawer cleanout because it was too small to notice and too useful to discard. It represented the Depression-era instinct perfectly. Take what is offered. Waste nothing. You might need it someday. Number 3, dead batteries. A cluster of D cells and AA batteries rolled around loose in the drawer, and not a single one of them was charged. Your grandmother put them back after the flashlight died because she was not entirely sure they were dead. Maybe they had a little juice left. Maybe the flashlight was the problem. So they went back into the drawer and they stayed there for years, slowly corroding, occasionally leaking a crust of white residue onto the takeout menus underneath. Nobody tested them, nobody threw them out. They just accumulated like geological deposits. The oldest ones sticky and swollen, the newest ones merely disappointing. Number 2, a flashlight that does not work. Right next to those dead batteries sat the flashlight itself. Heavy metal, the kind that took 2 D cells and produced a beam the color of weak tea, even when the batteries were fresh. The switch was sticky, the lens was scratched, the rubber button had gone soft. Your grandmother kept it in the drawer for emergencies, which meant every power outage began with the same ritual. Open the drawer, grab the flashlight, click it on, nothing, shake it, click again, dim flicker, darkness. Then someone would find candles. The flashlight went back in the drawer to wait for the next emergency. It would also fail to illuminate. This cycle repeated for years. Nobody bought new batteries. Nobody bought a new flashlight. The system was broken and everybody accepted it. Number 1, the junk drawer itself. Here's the truth nobody admits. The greatest forgotten artifact is not any single item. It is the drawer. The concept of a designated space where useful things went to become useless, where order surrendered to chaos, where a generation's instinct to save everything created a tiny museum of daily life. Every grandmother's junk drawer told her story. The matchbooks mapped where she traveled. The coupons showed what she fed her family. The mystery keys charted every door she had ever locked. The wheat pennies marked how long she had been saving. Kids opened that drawer looking for scissors and found a biography. That drawer does not exist in most homes anymore. We throw things away now, or we never accumulate them in the first place. And something got lost with it. Not the rubber bands or the pen caps, but the instinct behind them. The belief that everything had a second life, that nothing was truly spent, that somewhere between the twist ties and the dead batteries, there was something you might need tomorrow. Your grandmother knew that, and now so do you.